Alright, Geometry Dash 2.2 is finally released, and with it there is so many new things. Here's a bit of my reaction from yesterday when it was released. Update queued! Update queued! It says update queued! Oh my god! Yeah, you can probably tell I was pretty excited. So, there are so many new things to cover and many new things to explore. And you can see that inside the editor we have so many new things. There are so many new triggers and buttons and everything else. So with that in mind, Ausk and Vibrant wrote an editor guide, and it's extremely useful. And I thought it would be nice to just cover the same things that the editor guide covers, but in video format. Keep in mind, this video is not meant to replace the editor guide. I really appreciate Ausk and Vibrant's work. This is more so an extension of it for people that want to have a visual example in video format for the things that are already written in there. So click help, click yes, and definitely check out the editor by yourself. The editor guide is actually massive, and there's over 200 pages. I am not joking. And today we're looking at the basics category. If you want to get started with creating in the editor, this is where you start. This video series will go through everything about the GD editor. Everything you need to know will be in the editor guide. If you want to learn something in depth, you can go to the editor guide, but if you just want to watch how it's done and see examples, you are in the perfect place. We're gonna start with the very basics, creating your first level. Before I do start though, I just want to say these videos are going to take a long time to make, and they take effort and time because I have to learn things myself before teaching them. So if you do appreciate this series and you appreciate the idea and you find this video helpful, I would love if you left a like and subscribed as well, because that tells YouTube that this video is good and it's going to recommend it to more people, and that helps a bunch of people, and it also helps me immensely. You have no idea how much it helps me, so please consider doing that. All right, so without further ado, let's get into this. Welcome to the full editor guide video series.
Let's go!
Alright, so the first thing you want to do to create a level is to actually create the level. Click on the new button on the bottom right, and then you can assign a level name and description. These are entirely optional. For my level, I'm just going to do editor guide 001. And here you have some information already. You have how long the level is, you have the song that it uses, and you also have the verification status. If it's unverified, it means you didn't beat the level. And if it's verified, it means you beat the level already and it's ready to upload. Because you do have to beat it before uploading. Otherwise, you could just upload in possible levels. Here you can delete your level. You can click on the help button to open the editor guide. You can duplicate that level. You can also move it to the top of your created levels list. Here you have the guidelines of uploading levels, and then you have the main three buttons. The middle one obviously is to play the level. You have the one to upload it to the server, and then you have the one we're looking into today, which is the edit button. When you click that button, you enter the Geometry Dash editor, and right off the bat there's so many buttons, but I'm gonna break it entirely down for you to understand how everything works. Again, remember, if you want something more in-depth, go look at the editor guide. This is more so an extension in visual form to the guide itself. Right, so right off the bat, usually you want to start with defining your level settings. To access your level settings, just click the gear on the top right, and you now have the level settings tab. Starting on the top left, you have the speed tab, from which you can choose what speed your level is going to have by default. You can use portals and stuff to change that as the level goes, but we're going to get into that later into the series. For now, we're just setting up our level. I'm going to choose to go with normal speed. Below that, you also have the mode. This is kind of self-explanatory. You can decide what mode your level is going to start with. So if I put wave and then I press the playtest button, which you can also use enter, you're going to see that I'm in wave game mode. But if I go there in mode, change it to swing copter, I'm going to be in swing copter mode. For now, we're going to go with cube and normal speed. Here you have some extra options that you can do. If you decide to toggle on the mini mode, you're going to be a mini variation of your current game mode. Let's say if I were to put a wave and then toggle mini mode, I would be a mini wave. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. You have the dual mode, which makes you go into, dual mode. We're going to have two icons, and once you click, you activate both of them. And to change that, you can also activate two-player mode, which allows you to control each of these icons individually. So you can click on the right to move the one on the top, and then click on the left to move the one at the bottom. Before we look at all of these buttons, you can decide what game type this level is going to have. It can be classic or it can be platformer. For this one, we're going to go with classic to make things easier. Later on this series, we're going to look into platformer and the difference it has to classic levels. Classic is just the usual levels that you just auto scroll to the right and then you have to click to pass the obstacles. All right, there are a bunch of colored buttons at the top here, and they may look intimidating, but it's very easy to grasp as well. All of these letters stand for something. It's an abbreviation. So BG stands for background color. If you click the background color and you change it, let's say I'm gonna make it red. If you press OK twice, you're gonna see my background is now red. So we have the BG color for background, G for ground. G2 is also ground, but the detail color of the ground, depending on which ground you choose, which you can do in this tab here, you can use the ground 2 color to add some accent details with a different color to it. You also have the line. The line is exactly this line that sits on top of your ground. When you play the level, you see that's the one at the top and the bottom right there. One thing that makes this whole thing easier is that RupTop made the abbreviations consistent for the most part. So you have BG, which changes the color of the background, and then you also have the BG button, which changes the actual background. So let's say I want to use one of the new backgrounds. I can click this one, press OK, and my background is now going to be changed to that spooky one. I'm going to go with that one. I think that's pretty cool. You can also change your ground, and there's a bunch of new ones. I'm picking that one for now. And a new feature, which is the middle ground. This one is new to 2.2 exclusively. You can select a specific middle ground for your level. So if you click middle ground and then select one, once you play, you're going to see that there's that little middle ground right there. And if you save and play, you're going to see you have that middle ground as well. Do watch out, because currently if you add a middle ground to your level, it has a chance of crashing and then you can't reopen your level in the editor. But to fix this issue, in case you have it, you can upload the level to the servers. You can make it unlisted so no one sees it, and then you can copy it from the servers back into your account and then reopen it in the editor, and it's going to work fine. Anyway, below the middle ground, you have the font button. When you press save and play, you're gonna see that there is an attempt count right there. If you go to the editor settings and change the font, it's also gonna change the font for that. But not only that, but also the font for anything in the level. Let's say you were to place a font object right here, Ausk. You see that that's the font that I chose. And before we had only 12 categories of fonts, but now we have a bit more than that. Let's say I decide for font 48. That's going to be font 48 right there. And if I press save and play, it's also going to show the attempts count as well. Back to the level settings, you're going to see at the top of the colors that you have a more button. You can also basically do presets of how your colors are going to look. So let's say I do color 2 black, color 3 red, and color 4 blue. If I were to place an object, and don't worry, I'll teach you how to do that in a second, and I assign it to color 1, it's going to be white. But then if I put it on color 2, it'll be black, color 3, it'll be red, color 4, it's going to be blue. So you can pre-assign those color channels using the plus button right there. And if you want to change the color but also see it real time, you can click the plus button right next to the color channel that you're trying to change, and then it's going to open this tab right here. This is the hue, saturation, and brightness values, and then you have the opacity as well, which doesn't do anything for the background because the background is solid, but we're going to get into this later onto the series. Today is just a basic tutorial. Speaking of hue, saturation, and brightness, I also have a video upcoming that will teach pretty much everything you need to know about color theory and how to combine different colors, how to make them look good, and how to use hue, saturation, and brightness. Anyway, you can change the color here, and I'm gonna go with a purple, a bit more saturated and a bit darker as well. That's my background. And finally, the last button in the level settings tab is the select song. There is a vast variety of songs to use. You can use either normal songs or custom. Normal is basically all of the songs that are used in official RupTop levels, so you have all the way from Stereo Madness to Dash, which is the 22nd level, which was released in 2.2. But you can also click on custom, select custom song, and then you have access to the music library that RupTop has, but also to the Newgrounds sound portal. Of course, you have to agree to the guidelines once you do this for the first time, but after that, you can easily just enter a song ID, search, and then you can download that song to use it in this level. I kind of like this one. I tapped a random number, but I kind of like it, so I'll click on use. So now this song is assigned to the level. So if I press save and play, we can hear the song. You can also set a specific offset for your song. Let's say I wanted to start at 30 seconds into the song. I can do that as well, or maybe 60 seconds. You can also make it fade in and fade out for when you start and end the level. For me, this is fine. You can also look onto your saved songs that you have. Okay, now it's time to start placing objects, because if you want to make a level, you want to have something in the level. So my editor may look a bit different than yours. I'll go back to the default settings just so you guys aren't confused. There we go. So these big white lines define where the level starts and also where the ground is. If you press enter, it starts right there, and you can see that I'm on top of the ground. If you want to see the ground, you can go to the pause menu and then click on show ground, and it'll show the ground. I'm gonna change the color for my ground just to make it a bit cooler. I'm gonna make ground 1 a very dark pink, very dark purple right there. All right, now it's time to place objects. Place objects, you have to go to the build tab. You can use the number 1 on your keyboard to access the build tab. Build, edit, and delete. You can use use 1, 2, and 3. Makes it a lot faster to build, but we're gonna get into those later. And now you can place objects, and you click the object that you want to use, and then you click inside the editor, place the objects that you want to use. Now, to edit objects, you have the edit step right here. You have build, and then you have edit. These are pretty self-explanatory, so I'll just demonstrate. You have the single arrow, which moves the object by 1 step, and then you have the double arrow, which moves the object by 1 grid space, or by 1 block, however you want to word it. So if you click there, you're gonna see that it moves exactly 1 grid space up, down, left, or right. And if you use a single arrow, it's going to move 1 step up. Press it many times, eventually you're going to get there. This is useful when you're doing just a minor adjustment and you don't want to move it a whole grid block. But if you want to go even further and place it exactly at a place, you can also turn on free move, and then you can freely move your spike around. Let's say you moved it around, but now you want it back onto the grid. You can just click on snap to grid. You have to have free move and snap to grid activated, and then you free move it again, and it's going to snap to that grid. You can click on rotate, and you can rotate the object that you have there. And swipe allows you to select multiple objects at a time. If you don't want to go activating and deactivating swipe every time, you can also hold shift, click, and drag, and that's going to automatically turn swipe on. You can also use keybinds for moving these around. If you press WASD, you can also move your object around as well. And if you want to move just a step, you can also hold shift and then use WASD. Now let's put that back into its position. All right, so you can invert your objects horizontally. You can also invert them vertically like that. Sometimes it will misalign like that because of how the objects are placed. You can always just use free move and snap, bring it back to position. You can obviously rotate your object clockwise and counterclockwise. You can also use the Q and E keys to rotate. If you press E, it's going to rotate clockwise, and Q is going to rotate it counterclockwise. There's also keybinds attached to these. If you want to invert your object horizontally, you can press Alt Q, and if you want to invert it vertically, you can do Alt E as well. Onto the next page, we have 45-degree rotation. Select an object like 45 degrees, it's going to rotate likewise. And then you have the triple arrows, which move the object exactly 5 grid spaces to the side. So if you press triple arrow up, it's going to move exactly 5 spaces up. You also have the mini step buttons right here. You're going to notice that these are a lot smaller than these. That's because these move a lot less than the other ones do. If I press this once, it's the equivalent of 4 of these other ones. And then you have free and snap. If you click free, it's the same thing as clicking rotate right here, except it's for that one specific object. Just click free and then you rotate it around. You're going to use snap for slopes. Let's say you have 2 spikes and you want to place it on top of a slope. You're going to need to select a solid slope, of course. Select your 2 spikes, put them near the slope, and then click on snap. And then it's going to rotate to that exact degree, which can help a lot when decorating. Your level. On the next tab, you have 2 new buttons exclusively for 2.2. First of all, you have the scale button, which we already have. It allows you to scale your objects up to 2 and down to 0.5. And now exclusively on 2.2, you have the scale X and Y button. If you want to scale the X's of the object exclusively without having to scale the other one, you can use scale X to stretch it or use scale Y to stretch it as well. This is pretty easy if you're looking for more specific scaling, but you can also use the warp tool, which has a lot more features. But keep in mind, some objects like the text don't have all of the dimensions, but if you go to an object like this, which is just a regular decoration, let's say I put the circle right there, you can, if it's too small, you can zoom in, try to open it like that. Of course, smaller objects will look very blurry if you scale them up too much, but objects like glow will always look very nice. So if you were to scale that up, if I do this, it's going to be locked into the aspect ratio, but if I unlock that, I can warp freely. So you can actually make a whole glow wall using just one object. Let me set that to a copy color of background with blending color. I'll explain what that is later on, and then you have a really nice blending thing at the bottom of your level without having to use a bunch of objects. So that is it for the build and the edit tab. In the next video, we're going to look at specific color channels for each object that you can put. We're going to look at the delete tab, which is a bit more complex. And we're also going to look at all of these other buttons in the editor and what they do specifically. Just in this video, we already covered 17 pages of the editor guide. So make sure you go check it out and read the stuff for more in-depth information. Again, huge thanks to AutoNick and Vibrant for making this guide. It's the entire base for this video series. and I know that's going to help immensely a lot of people. Keep in mind that before teaching these, I have to actually learn them myself. So again, do consider subscribing because it helps me incredibly much. I really appreciate your support. I will be waiting you here for the next episode of the Geometry Dash 2.2 editor guide. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.